Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 5. This week, we're talking about consequential ethical theories. And as you'll know from your reading, that mostly centers around the concepts of egoism and utilitarianism. If you've been looking through the module, you'll see that we have a kind of a busy week this week. I just kind of updated some stuff here. So I want to take you through it real quick. Obviously, you got to read chapter 5, watch the videos. Now, you have 2 graded Dropbox assignments this week that are written, and I'm going to get to those in a second. But since you have 2 written assignments, what I did to kind of take a little bit of the stress off you this week is I went ahead and made the quiz number 5 as a bonus quiz. It's basically what's called value added. If you don't take the quiz, nothing happens. You know, there's no harm, no good from it. It's not a required graded quiz. But what it is it's bonus points. It's 10 potential extra credit points. And this is in addition to the 100 points that I'm offering you for various assignments. So this will not deduct from that. This is what's called value added. So there's no harm in taking the quiz. Anything you get is bonus to your grade. So if you go in and you get 2 answers right instead of getting 8 wrong and failing the quiz like normal, that's just 2 bonus points that you get for the class. So I would recommend taking that and trying to get as many points as you can, because that'll be a nice little bonus for you guys. That's me trying to help you guys out a little bit this week, take some of the pressure of the assignments off. And if we're being honest, there's people out there who have missed some quiz grades over the course of the semester so far. This can help replace that 0 with potentially 10 points, which would be an uptick for a lot of people in their grades. So please take advantage of that bonus point opportunity there. Okay. So essentially we have the Dropbox for applying ACT utilitarianism, and that's going to be the next step of our CTAP assignment that we've broken down over the 4 different weeks. And so I'm going to go ahead and discuss this in a minute. That's a 30-point assignment, and the rubric is in there as usual. Usually it's a 40-point assignment, but I'm spreading the points between the 2 assignments that are in the week. So this is a 30-point rubric. So it's basically the same: 5 for instructions, 5 for APA, 5 for grammar mechanics, and then the other 15 will be for the content. So half is still content, and the other half is just, following the instructions of the assignment. Okay? And then the second one is consequentialism in voting, and I'll get to that in a second. Now, I'm going to kind of briefly go over them here because I do want to spend the class time discussing these assignments this week. Since the quiz is bonus, we don't have to be as heavy into the, vocabulary and stuff this week, because I do want to make sure we understand how to apply ACT utilitarianism, because it's a big part of the assignment this week. Okay. So what you'll see here, I've got the instructions in the Dropbox as usual. What this part here says is basically the sample paper that I put in there is an extension of the instructions, and I want you guys to adhere to that and read the things that are in there. It goes into a little more detail than what I put in here. I have the basics of the assignment in here, but I want you to use this as an example. I am providing examples for the assignments for you guys, but unfortunately, some people aren't following the examples closely, guys. When I put an example in the course, it's not a suggestion. It's the way I want it to be, right? So I'm going to go through this real quick so you see I got the nice APA title page. I got my page numbers in the top right corner. Okay. And then what this is a 3-point assignment, three sections, A, B, and C. So in section 1A, in one good paragraph, 6 to 8 sentences, you're explaining the key concepts of ACT utilitarianism. Now, make sure you include key terms, concepts, ideas central to the theory, and you must paraphrase and cite the textbook throughout this section. That's a must, guys. Again, this is not a suggestion. This is a must. If you do not use the textbook support, you will lose points for not following the directions. One of the biggest things I took points away for in Module 3 is people didn't use the textbook to support, which you don't know Kohlberg's theory well enough to speak on it as an authority. So when you were saying stuff about the theory and you weren't citing the book, that's technically plagiarism. Okay? Having a reference at the end of the paper doesn't cover all borrowed material. The borrowed information goes immediately after, the cite goes immediately after the borrowed information. And it's not just one cite at the end of the paragraph like many people did. I want you to layer it in. So say something about the theory and cite it. Then say something in your own words kind of explaining that. Then say something else about the theory and cite it. And then say something in your words explaining that. And you layer it like this. A little bit from the textbook, a little bit of yours. A little bit from the textbook, a little bit of yours. And everything you take from the textbook is paraphrased, no direct quotes, paraphrase only. And everything you take from the textbook has to be cited. So if you say act utilitarian is this, that, or the other thing, you have to cite that, because you are not an authority on, act utilitarianism. You're not a professional source. So you looked up that information somewhere and you have to cite that. Okay, so read through this, please. Make sure you have a solid paragraph explaining in-depth act utilitarianism as a theory. In 1B, you're going to start by restating the central ethical issue or question from your previous assignment. So that's that should question that you asked at the end of your 5 is it rights. So we don't need the is it rights. We just need that should, Mallory and Ross do such and such, or whatever your question turned out to be. Make sure you, before submitting this assignment, you've implemented my feedback that I'm going to give you throughout the week on your previous assignment, because if I ask you to change your central question, you're going to need to change it on this one as well. If you don't change it, you're going to lose points again, because remember, we're going to be kind of evolving this thing as we go based off my feedback. Okay, so after you state the question, then you're going to set up the net utility chart, which you'll see this in chapter 5 of the book. This is a chart where it measures the net utility of a decision, of an option, and the scale. And I want the scale in your assignment, please. Happiness is +10, unhappy is -10. And so what you're going to do is you're going to set up a chart that looks similar to your stakeholder chart, except now the names of your stakeholders are across the top and the options are written out across the side. And then you have this net utility column here. And as you guys can see in the chapter, you're going to assess a value to each of these options of how it would affect that stakeholder. So think +10 is the happiest that person's ever going to be, and -10 is the unhappiest they're ever going to be. And you're going to put a value on that option that the decision maker has made. Now, I don't want you to sweat the assessment of these numbers. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and they ask you on 1 to 10 pain scale. That scale is subjective to you as a person because it's your scale. So 2 people won't go have the same scale at the doctor. 2 people aren't going to have the same scale for this assignment. So just use your subjective view of how you think that person will be effective. And it's fine because the scale is yours and you're going to apply it equally to these options. And so the numbers will have meaning to you. If hopefully that makes sense. Excuse me. So you'll go through, and whatever option 1 was, maybe they don't have the wedding or whatever, you go through and you assess -7, -7, +4, 0. Now don't just replicate these numbers, because remember, these are just arbitrary numbers I threw in there for the sake of having a chart. Okay? But you're going to put those values in, and then you add the columns up across. So -7, -7, 4, and 0 is -10. So option 1 has a net utility of -10. Option 2 is -6. Option 3 is +6. And then option 4 is -11. Okay? And so what you do then at the end, you go back and you look for the highest net utility, which in this case is option 3 because it's 6. Okay? So this would be the utilitarian, the act utilitarian option that brings the greatest amount of happiness to the most amount of people involved. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Professor Cruz, if we have that, why do I need the second chart? Well, on the second chart, as you'll see for the textbook, the second chart, you're actually going to fill in how many stakeholders are in each option and affected, and then you're going to do math, because some people have put descendants of slaves, some people have put plantation owners or party planners, essentially groups that are going to have more than one person in it. Remember, this first scale is what the right option would be if all things are equitable, if all stakeholders are just one person, option 3 would be the best. Okay? Now, when we go down here, stakeholder 1 is a group of 2, stakeholder 2 is one person, stakeholder 3 is a group of 3, stakeholder 4 is a group of 12. So now when I multiply -7 by 2, -7 by 1, 4 by 3, 0 by 12, now that comes to a -9. See, it was -10 a minute ago, but now it's -9 because the numbers have changed. And so what happens here, you'll see all of a sudden now my highest net value is option 2 at 29 because the number of people changed, the net utility score. So I think it's important to have both those charts so you can see that progression. Sometimes it changes, sometimes it doesn't. If you get the same option from the first chart to the second, that's fine. In this case, mine just happened to be different because of the numbers as they got calculated, okay? It's fine either way. I just want you to see that evolution, so I want both the charts, okay? This chart, you're just laying out the stakeholders, the options, and the value. And in here, you're doing the multiplication for the number of people involved, okay? Now, in section 1C, in one good paragraph, 4 to 6 sentences, explain what the best option is according to ACT utilitarianism. So you're going to explain the option that you got in the second chart, and then you're going to talk about what the decision maker should do if they were truly an ACT utilitarian. What would the utilitarian theory say is morally right or the best thing to do according to the application of ACT utilitarianism? Use the textbook if needed to help with this explanation. Be sure to paraphrase, do not directly quote. And as always, cite directly after the borrowed material like I talked about in that first paragraph. So essentially this last paragraph is just going to be you explaining essentially how you came up to the net utility of that option, why it's the best option, and what the person should do. Now, as you'll see in the instructions, I want this to be solely in third person. I saw in just a brief ones I looked over in the first assignment so far. Some people are using I, me, we, us, our, you, your, yourself. I don't want any of that stuff. I want third person. If you don't know what that means, the writing tutors will be more than happy to help you with that. Okay, after your 3 paragraphs, as always, on your last page, you're going to have references and a properly formatted APA citation for the textbook. Okay, and that's the first assignment. It looks like a lot, but it's really not. Okay, just one good paragraph explaining the theory, the restatement of your issue, the 2 charts to set up your net utility, and then one good paragraph explaining the ACT utilitarian option based off the net utility chart, okay? And so now what I want to do is I want to show you the next assignment that you're going to do, and that's just a little 2-paragraph assignment. It's nothing too out there. So yes, you'll have to do 2 written things, but it really shouldn't be super hard for you guys. I just recommend don't putting it off until the last minute, because if you try to do it all on Sunday, you're going to run out of time, right? So for this one, there's no example. I just want you to use full APA format. By now, I shouldn't have to show you how to do a title page and a reference page every single time. It should be the same for each assignment. But essentially in this one, there's this age-old question of how people should vote, and we have an election coming up, so I think it's a good thing to consider. Some people say that voting is an act of egoism, meaning you should be able to go and vote for what you want, and some people say voting should be an act of utilitarianism, meaning you should go and vote for what's best for society. Both answers are correct. It just depends on how you see it as an individual and how you make an argument for the theory that you chose. So this is just a 2-paragraph writing assignment. The first paragraph is 6 to 8 sentences, and you're just going to start with a claim and 2 to 3 reasons why that claim is true. Think about this as like a thesis statement. So voting should be an act of egoism, utilitarianism because A, B, or C. So you're going to choose one of these. Remember, it's not like trying to put Gilligan and Kohlberg in the same person. Just choose egoism or utilitarianism, and then 2 to 3 reasons why, and just write that as your first sentence. Just jump right into it because we don't have a lot of time. You don't have to worry about a lot of setup. Then in the rest of the paragraph, I want you to briefly elaborate upon each point. Use support from the textbook when needed and cite all paraphrased material in proper APA format. Please do not use any direct quotes. I want to see you I want to see you process the information from the textbook in your own words. So essentially, your 2 to 3 points here should be things that you can back up from the theory. So that first paragraph, you have that statement. It should be egoism because, or utilitarianism because, A, B, or A, B, and C. And then you just explain that in the rest of the paragraph. 6 to 8 sentences, fully flesh out those ideas, and get that explanation first. So that's your argument you're making. This because these reasons, and here's my support, okay? Now, in paragraph 2, this is another 6 to 8 sentences. In this paragraph, you will justify your claim of egoism or utilitarianism. If choosing egoism, please explain why the needs, wants, and or desires of the individual are more important than the needs of the collective, meaning society as a whole. And likewise, if choosing utilitarianism, please explain why the needs, wants, and or desires of the collective or society are more important than those of the individual. And again, please use support from the textbook as needed, paraphrase, and cite appropriately. So you're going to justify why, if you're choosing egoism, why the individual is allowed to put their needs above society, and utilitarianism, you're going to justify why society comes before the individual. Now, one thing I do want you to consider if you're using utilitarianism, I want you to explain, how that greater good is determined, okay? Because remember, like, it's for the greatest amount of good for the most amount of people. So who or what or how would that be determined? So how would the voter know to go in there and choose what's best? Where would that information come from, okay? This is also third person. I don't want any I, me, my, mine, you, your, yourself. Keep it in third person, academic. So anybody picks this up and they read it, it sounds like a factual argument one way or the other. Please revise and proofread your assignment as needed to avoid mistakes in the grammar and mechanics, as always, and use the writing tutors and librarians as needed for both of these assignments. And please use full APA 7th edition standards. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward, just two paragraphs about how you feel voting should be on the consequentialism scale, either egoism or utilitarian. As always, there's not an answer I'm looking for. I want you to choose the answer that's best for you and use theory to support your answer. And have fun with this assignment. It's intended to be fun and enjoyable and something that gets you thinking about what you may or may not be doing in November, or if you're not old enough to vote yet, what you may or may not be doing, in 2 years when we have another state election and you're old enough to vote, okay? So it's a good thing to think about, particularly from the ethics perspective. And you'll see that there's a rubric here, and it's a 20-point rubric, but I've just kind of modified. If you'll notice, everything's about the same. Content is at usually half or a little more, so 11 points for the content, 3 points for the grammar mechanics, 3 points for adherence to APA guidelines, and 3 points for the assignment instructions. So pretty straightforward. 2 assignments that you're going to have in a Dropbox by Sunday, the 20th. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sunday the 20th by 11:59 p.m. Remember, no late assignments. If it's late, it's a 0. And the quiz, remember, it's value added. It's bonus points. So please take advantage of that. Get those extra points and make the most of that opportunity. That's it for now. I will see you guys in class this week. We'll explain this stuff some more, but you have this documented in the video so you can use it as you go along, and you can view it while you're working. And as always, if you have any questions, please reach out and email me. And I'm looking forward to having a great week, and I'll see you all in class. Bye.